On the edge of the forest, in a small hut, a poor widow lived alone. In front of the hut she had a garden, and in the garden there were 2 rose bushes. One of them had white roses in bloom, and the other had red roses. And she had 2 daughters, one whiter than a white rose, the other more ruddy than a red one. Both girls were modest, kind, hardworking, obedient. It seems that, if you go around the whole world you won't find a better one. Only Snow White was quieter, and more of Krasnozorka loved to run and jump on meadows and fields, to collect flowers, to catch songbirds. And Snow White would rather stay by her mother's side, helping her with the housework or reading aloud when there was. The sisters loved each other so much that they went everywhere together, holding hands. And if Snow White said we will never part, then Krasnozorka added as long as you're alive, and my mother was finishing up, help each other in everything and share everything equally. Often the 2 sisters went together into the and not once did any predatory animal touch them, not a single small animal hid from them in fear. A rabbit boldly took a cabbage leaf from the sisters' hands, a wild goat grazed like a domestic one before their eyes, a deer jumped merrily around, and the forest birds did not even think of flying away from the girls. They sat on the branch. Never had any misfortune befallen them in the forest. If they hesitated, and the night caught them in the thicket, they would lie down side by side on the soft moss and sleep peacefully until morning. My mother knew the rows and did not worry about them in the least. Snow White and Krasnozorka always clean. In the summer, Krasnozorka looked after everything. Every morning, before her mother woke up, she would put a bunch of flowers by her bed, and the bouquet would always contain a flower from each rose bush, a white rose and a red. And in winter, Snow White was in charge of the house. She built a fire in the hearth and hung a pot on a hook over the fire. The pot was copper, but it shone like gold, so brightly was it polished. In the evening, when a snowstorm was blowing outside, my mother would say, "Come on, Snow White, close the door tight." And the 3 of them, the mother would take out her glasses, open a large thick book, and begin to read, while the 2 girls sat at their spinning wheels, listening and spinning. A lamb lay on the floor beside them, and behind them, on a perch, a white dove was dozing, its head tucked under its wing. One day, as they were sitting thus before the fire and passing the evening over a book and a spinning wheel, someone knocked timidly at the door, as if to ask. My mother said, "Unlock it quickly. It's probably some traveler looking for shelter and rest." Krasnozorka went and pulled back the bolt. She thought she would see a tired man outside, caught in the storm. But no, it wasn't a man standing in the doorway. It was a bear that immediately poked its huge black head through the door. Krasnozorka screamed loudly and jumped back. The lamb bleated. The dove flapped its wings. And Snow White hid in the farthest corner, behind her mother's bed. The bear looked at them and said in a human voice, "Don't be afraid. I won't do you any harm. I'm just very cold and I'd like to warm up a little at your place." "You poor beast," my mother said. "Lie down here by the fire, but be careful not to burn your fur coat by accident." Then she screamed, "Snow White! Krasnozorka! Come here." The 2 girls came closer, followed by the lamb and the dove. And soon none of them were afraid of the bear. "Children," said the bear, "clean my fur coat a little, for it is covered with snow." The girls brought a broom, brushed the thick bear fur, and the bear stretched out in front of the fire, purring with pleasure. And Snow White and Krasnozorka trustfully perched next to him. They ruffled his fur, put their feet on his back, pushed him first one side, then the other, teased him with walnut rods. And when the beast began to growl, they laughed loudly. The bear was willing to let him play with him, and only grumbled when he was too much pestered. Snow White! Krasnozorka! How long, children, before? When night came, and it was time to go to bed, the mother said to the bear, "Stay here, in front of the hearth. Here, at least, you will be sheltered from the wind and cold." The furry guest remained. At dawn, the girls opened the door, and the bear slowly wandered into the forest through the snowdrifts. But from that time on, every evening at the same hour, he came to them, laid down in front of the fire, and let the two sisters stir it up as much as they liked. The girls were so used to it that they didn't even close the doors until their shaggy black friend came, and then spring came. When everything was green, the bear said to Snow White, "Goodbye. I have to leave you, and I won't see you again for the whole summer." "Where are you going, dear bear?" Snow White asked. "To the forest to protect your treasures from the evil dwarfs," the bear replied. "In the winter, when the ground freezes hard, but now the sun has warmed the earth, melted the ice, and they have probably already made a way out of their dungeon to the outside, climbed out, rummaged everywhere and dragged to themselves what they like. And what gets into their hands and ends up in their burrow, you will not soon find." It was a pity for Snow White to part with a good friend. She opened the door for him, and he, making his way past her through the threshold, accidentally caught on the door hook and tore out a piece of wool. And then it seemed to Snow White that there was a glint of gold under the shaggy bearskin, but she couldn't believe it. The bear broke into a run, and before she could look back, it was gone through the trees. Soon after, the mother of the two daughters sent them out into the forest to get firewood. In the thicket, the girls came across a large tree that had been felled to the ground by bad weather. Even from a distance, they noticed that something was scurrying and jumping in the grass near the trunk. But they couldn't make out what it was. The sisters came closer and saw the dwarf, a small old man with a wrinkled face and a long, snow-white beard. The tip of his beard was caught in a crack in the tree, and the little boy jumped and tossed like a. When he saw the girls, he bulged his red eyes, glowing like sparks, and shouted, "What have you become? Can't you come closer and help?" "What are you doing here, old man?" Krasnozorka asked. "You stupid nosy goose," the dwarf replied. "I wanted to split the wood so I could make some small wood for the kitchen. Our tender, light meals are burnt on thick logs. After all, we eat a little and do not fill our bellies like you rude, greedy people." I was already driving a wedge into the tree and everything was going fine, but the damn piece of wood was too slippery and suddenly flew back out. I didn't have time to jump back, and my beautiful white beard was pinched like a vise. So it's stuck in the crack, and I can't get out, no matter how hard I try. Are you too fat?" Cheaped fools laughing. Ugh, and it's disgusting. The girls tried their best to help the dwarf, but they could not free his beard because it was too tightly trapped in the crevice. "I'll run and call the people," said Krasnozorka. "Empty mutton heads," the dwarf screeched. "We really need to call people here. I've had enough of you." "Be patient," said Snow White. "I'll help you out now." She took a small pair of scissors from her pocket and cut off the end of his beard. As soon as the dwarf felt free, he grabbed a bag stuffed to the brim with gold hidden between the roots of a tree and tied it tightly, grumbling under his breath, "Uncouth people, they took a piece of my." With that, he shouldered the bag and left without even looking at the girls. A few days after that, Snow White and Krasnozorka decided to catch some fish for dinner. When they came to the bank of the stream, they saw a large grasshopper jumping near the water, as if it wanted to throw itself into the stream. They ran closer and recognized the dwarf they had. "What's the matter with you?" Krasnozorka asked. "You're going to jump in, aren't you?" "I'm not that stupid," the dwarf shouted back. "Can't you see that it's the damned fish that's pulling me along?" It turned out that the dwarf was sitting on the shore and fishing. Unfortunately, the wind decided to play with his long beard and wound it on the fishing line. And then, as if on purpose, a big fish took a bite. The poor man didn't have the strength to pull her ashore. The fish overcame the angler and pulled him into the water. He clung to the blades of grass and straws, but he couldn't help himself. The fish was tossing in the water and dragging him along the bank, now to the right, now to the left, a little. The girls arrived just in time. Gripping the dwarf tightly, they tried to untangle his beard. Yes, where is there? The beard and the fishing line were so closely intertwined that there was nothing to think about. There was only one thing to do: take the small scissors out of his pocket again. As soon as the scissors clicked, the dwarf shouted in a voice that was not his own, "Yes, where is it seen, you pop-eyed frogs, so to disfigure a person? Not only did you snatch the end of my beard from me earlier, but now you have cut off the best part of it. How can I look like this to my own?" Then he snatched up a bag of pearls hidden in the reeds and without another word disappeared behind the stone. 3 more days passed, and then the mother sent both her daughters to the city to buy needles, thread, laces, and ribbons. The road ran through a desolate plain with huge blocks of. The girls noticed that a large bird was hovering in the sky. Slowly circling, she sank lower and lower and finally sat down not far from the girls, near one of the rocks. At the same moment, they heard a shrill, plaintive cry. The sisters rushed to help and were horrified to see that their old friend, a gray, bearded dwarf, had fallen into the eagle's claws. The bird spread its wings. The girls grabbed the little man with all their strength and pulled until the bird released its prey. As soon as the dwarf recovered from his fright, he shouted in his raspy, shrill voice, "Couldn't you have been more careful with me? You have torn my coat of such fine cloth to shreds. Oh, you clumsy girls." He picked up a bag this time, and the girls, not at all surprised, went on. They were already used to his ingratitude. In the evening, having finished their business in the city, the sisters were returning by the same road and again unexpectedly saw the dwarf. Choosing a clean, level spot, he emptied his bag of precious stones and sorted them out, not thinking that anyone would pass the rocks. In the rays of the setting sun, the shiny stones glittered so wonderfully, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, that the sisters involuntarily stopped and admired. The dwarf looked up and saw the girls. "What are you doing, Rosini? Stop it!" he shouted, his ashen face flushed with anger. "What do you want here?" He opened his mouth to shout another curse, but then there was a terrible growl, and a large black bear rolled out of the forest like a ball. The dwarf jumped aside in fear, but he could not escape to his underground hole. The bear was already 2 steps away. "Dear Mr. Bear, spare me. I will give you all my treasures. Look at those beautiful stones that lie before you. Just give me life. What do you want with me, so small and puny? You won't even feel me on your teeth. You'd better take these nasty girls. This will be a tasty morsel for you. You can see for yourself that they are fatter than young quails. Eat them." But the bear did not move an ear, as if he did not hear what the evil dwarf was saying to him. He only struck it once with his heavy paw, and the dwarf did not move again. The girls were very frightened and started to run, but the bear called after them, "Snow White, Krasnozorka." Then they recognized the voice of their old friend and stopped. When the bear came up with them, the thick bearskin suddenly fell off, and they saw before them a beautiful young man, dressed from head to. "I am the king's son," said the young man. "That evil dwarf stole my treasures and turned me into a bear. As a wild beast, I was to wander through the wilds of the forest until his death set me free. And now, at last, he has been punished justly, and I have become a man again. But I'll never forget how sorry you were for me when I was still in animal skin. We will never part again. Let Snow White be my wife." And so it happened. When the time came, the king's son married Snow White, and his brother married Krasnozorka. The precious treasures that the dwarf had taken to the underground caverns glittered again in the sun. The good widow lived with her daughters for many years in peace and happiness. She took the 2 rose bushes with her. They grew under her window, and every year wonderful roses bloomed on them. Why?